today we're talking with Jon Miller, the CEO of Halcyon, really an informative company that's really focused on anti-ransomware and cyber resilience. And really that's what we wanted to dive in today, mostly around why cybersecurity today, why now, and how the Redwood Project is really helping this bold approach of change in the industry right now. So ultimately, Jon, I wanted to start with the big question around that four-letter word, that cybersecurity. Why change now? Why do you think there's a need for a focus around cybersecurity today?
I mean, I think cybersecurity has inherently changed, in the last 5 years. And it's become obvious in the news where, cybersecurity, there have always been hacks, right? Since the days of computers, worms, hackers.
Right.
What we were always missing was impact, right? Even with the large breaches that we had that were nation state driven, the impact wasn't transparent, right? Like they hack a big healthcare company, they steal all the patient data. What are they doing with it? Nobody knows, right? Like tomorrow doesn't change.
Yeah.
Now what we're seeing is essentially, at a nation state level, the dominant force of the internet is starting to change. Where the Five Eyes, in general, in Israel, have invested a lot in cyber capabilities. I mean, going all the way back, and have these really mature platforms and capabilities, but they're also bound by regulation that kind of adds on top of each other, and durability of these techniques, right? So many of them are secret that the use it, you risk the very secrecy of it. And if it's not secret, you can't use it for a bigger emergency later, right? So you end with capabilities that you have that aren't getting used to effect today because nobody wants to rob the optionality of tomorrow.
Yep.
And then we've had this transition, right, of these Russian FSB GRU guys essentially setting up these ransomware economies, and starting to do serious damage on like the civilized Western world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I completely agree, Jon. I mean, I think the cyber attacks are becoming way more sophisticated and way more frequent. And you mentioned something from a response, like what are we doing with what they get access to, or what are they doing with what they get access to? And I think that response piece is really, really important. So, with that context and really where your mind is, why now? And what makes this moment right for a program like the Redwood Project?
So it wasn't really getting weaponized before now. Where now you're actually seeing them go after hospitals, you're seeing them go after critical infrastructure, you're seeing them go after not just the big companies that come out in the press, but everything down to SMBs. And it's materially affecting things. And I think that that's really the problem is anyone at any time before could be like, tomorrow's going to be the worst day. And they could be right or wrong. Today we know that it's getting worse. There's no counterbalance to these attackers. They're getting away with everything. They're making millions and millions of dollars. And there's no consequence. So it just is breeding more and more. So we're at a point now where I feel like we've kind of lost control. Right, where we used to have a handle on what was going on, and nation states were really the ones that were driving things. And now we're seeing organized crime essentially take out huge critical targets, right? Whether they're corporations or critical infrastructure,
Yeah.
or, and something needs to change to stop that, because it's not getting better, it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
So maybe the question is, today we absolutely need it. There was a point years ago where we could have got our hands around this better and didn't. And now it's kind of spiraling out of control.
Yeah. And I feel like we're not necessarily waiting for the government to tell us what to do during this next disaster or this next strike, but we need to come together a lot sooner. Not only for our personal brands, to protect our personal brands, our company brands, as well as our nation, right? You've mentioned that a couple of times already, and I know that everybody involved in this project feels the exact same way. How do I protect myself and my family from an incident happening or something leaking? How do I protect the brand that I represent? And how do we ultimately protect the nation? So with that type of input and the impact that a breach could have on our nation and our brands as a company or as a personal individual contributor, why this initiative today? And really, where do you see a project like the Redwood Group differ from some of the other things you've been involved with in the past?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever been involved in something quite like the Redwood Project.
Awesome.
Right. I've spent a lot of time working, with the government, but more on individual technical problems, right? Like, we need to accomplish X, right? And it's interesting to take a kind of a step back and look at the bigger picture. And from my perspective, it's super obvious that we need to bring essentially the government and the private enterprise together in a collaborative way, where essentially commercial companies are dealing with the brunt of nation state attacks, right? You can call it cyber terrorism. When you're dealing with with a group that's attacking your home, your family, your business, with military style weapons, right? Like if the Mexican cartels got a bunch of F-16s and started, blowing up businesses, we'd respond with F-16s, right? Or F-22s, or
More
and that's still not
yeah.
right. Like we've had maybe a dozen arrests of people that have been associated with ransomware attacks. There just needs to be more attention kind of paid to the fact that for all the work we've done, since the birth of the industry, we're essentially losing our foothold now. And because of that, we know essentially problems that we all have that haven't been addressed, and there's never been that driving time to get them addressed. And it seems like the time's now, because we're going to end up in situations with groups turning off lights, right? Attacking manufacturing, utilities. Most people don't know this, but the water district in Tampa, before the Tampa Super Bowl, and somebody tried to poison the water.
Oh my God.
Really, right before the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And those kind of core vulnerabilities that have existed there, like, haven't gone away. We've always just relied on not enough people willing to do it. And I think that's really changed.
Yeah, that's and those are incredible insights, Jon. I think it sounds like from your point of view, you feel like the Redwood Project is more than just a cybersecurity solution, something that's really targeted just to that. It's more of a movement to change the way we're really approaching this whole problem together. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, bringing people together to start a series of conversations on how um, individuals can act together, right, with common goals or priorities, and hopefully affect some change.
Yeah, I love it. Jon, thank you so much for the incredible insights today. Thank you so much for explaining why the change is needed and really why now is the moment for us to really be focusing on this as a unit, and really your thoughts around the Redwood Project and how it's leading the way to ultimately protect our brands and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you.